here's where the story begins. So, colleges have a big problem in the United States. The big problem is called graduation. In the United States, approximately 48% of the students who enroll in college will have graduated from that college within 6 years. This is really bad, and colleges don't like it because they want happy graduates. They want people who go to their schools, get through them, and go on with their lives. So one of the things they've come up with to help try to figure out whether or not a student is going to be successful at their school is this thing. Standardized tests, not this pamphlet, but the idea of standardized testing. So what standardized testing does is two things. One is that it helps you figure out, or a school figure out really, what kind of academic skills you have. Do you know basic algebra? Are you able to read a nonfiction passage and break it down and get the main idea? Can you take information from a chart and answer a question based on it? So they're looking to see those kinds of skills, and then after that, they're looking to see where you stack up on those skills in regards to everybody else who's taken this test. So when you take the ACT, you're basically going to get two types of information out of it. They're going to say, well, can you do algebra? Can you do the critical reading at an appropriate college level? And then where do you stack up against those other students? So if you're looking at most colleges in the United States, and there's about 3,500 colleges in the United States, about 3,300 of them, I'm sorry, was that a hand there? No? Okay, so about 3,300 of them are going to be looking for that first thing. They're going to want to make sure that you've got the appropriate skills for college. So generally speaking, we're going to talk about the scores in a moment, but for those types of schools, you're looking to get something a little better than the 40th percentile, up to the 65th percentile. You're looking for kind of an average score for the vast majority of the schools in this country. So if you're looking at some places relatively locally like Linden or Castleton or Johnson, any of those, Linden isn't Johnson, excuse me, any of those types of schools, you're going to be looking to get somewhere in that middle range of scores, which on the ACT is around a 22. So I'll talk about those numbers and why I put that in scare quotes in a moment. But if you're looking for somewhere more competitive, like UVM, where they do reject a fair number of the applicants, you need something a little higher. UVM's average is about a 26. You can feel comfortable if you have that. 27 is going to be a little bit more preferred just to kind of get you over that edge. So what the colleges are really looking for then is, do you have the basic skills? And then after that, where do you stack up? So how do they get these numbers? So they do two things. One is they sort of estimate what students are doing nationally, and then they go ahead and they give you that test, and they go ahead and they look at how the test came out, and they scale it again after that to make sure that everything matches. So it's a little bit of black magic, but basically they're taking what they think you should be able to do, and then they're seeing how you actually did, and they revise it after the fact to match a kind of a bell curve. Very boring, I'm going to move on from that. One of the biggest problems I tend to see with students who come to me is, they're trying to improve their score, so it's not a long-term problem, but they go and take the test without even taking a practice test. They don't look at the test, they don't do any preparation, they just kind of go in and take it. And if that's going to be your first step, and if you don't do well after that, you're going to seek help and start practicing, that's fine then. But if it's your real test, if it's the last chance you have to take this test, and you haven't at least looked through or understood some basic approaches to it, you're going to be at a deficiency compared to those other students. And that's what today is about. It's helping to level the playing field for you guys, because if you don't know this stuff, you're at a disadvantage compared to the students who do know it. And why have that? You guys work hard. You deserve the grades that you get. You deserve to go to college. Let's not this kind of silly stuff be a barrier to that. So moving right along, what we've got here, it's a little disorganized as I look at it, but if you want to take a look at this chart here on the page marked number 2, we can see what the score ranges are for the ACT and the general breakdown. So it's a fairly long test. It is 3 hours, 25 minutes, 5 sections, including the essay, and I'm going to talk about why you really, really, really want to take the essay, even if it's not necessarily required by one or more of your schools. The new SAT and the ACT have become more similar to each other. So just as sort of a note, a lot of what we're talking about today, with the exception of the science section and the essay, is going to apply virtually directly to the new SAT. So we kind of talk a little bit about that. So which do the colleges want you to take? And the answer is they don't care anymore. There used to be this sort of belief that the ACT was for Midwestern kids and the SAT was for kids who lived on the coast, the East Coast and the West Coast. These days, colleges have gotten rid of that kind of distinction. Every college in the United States accepts both equally. And the reason for this is that they want students from all over the country to apply. And if you say, no, only ACT, then you're going to cut down on the students who just took the SAT and vice versa. So colleges don't really care which one you take. You can take either of them. And as far as today, English, critical reading, and math goes, unless I say something otherwise, if it's true on the ACT, it's true on the new SAT as well. So we'll talk for a moment about guessing and how they come up with the scores. But just to kind of finish up the basic introduction here. So it's going to be math is 60 minutes, English is 45 minutes, critical reading's 35 minutes, science is 35 minutes, and then you've got the essay, which is now at 40 minutes. So they gave you another 10 minutes on the essay. So we'll talk about the essay at the end, but there's some weird, quirky things about the essay that make it both easier once you know what to do, but harder if you don't. Anyway, we'll get to that. So, talking about the scores. So first things first, what are they looking for? What they're looking for is how many questions you got correct. You're not penalized for wrong answers, in other words. So if you don't know the answer to the question, on the ACT and the SAT, you always want to guess. So, how do you guess? Here's how you guess on these tests. So, excuse me. You have, let's say, 60 questions on the math section. Let's say you left 10 blank, hypothetically. So what you do is, about a minute or two before the end of the section, you stop and you say to yourself, you look over your answers that you've selected and say, which of these answer choices do I feel like I've answered the least? Okay, it looks like I haven't answered B all that much. Guess B into all the blanks. On a modern standardized test, all the answers are equally distributed. So it's none of this, oh, I'll guess C and I'll just get more correct. Not if it's designed by professionals, because they don't want some student who just guesses A getting a better score than somebody who just guesses D. So if all the answers are evenly distributed, if you haven't answered a given answer all that much, chances are it's going to show up more frequently in the questions you haven't answered. So that is the guessing strategy for both the SAT and the ACT. Wait until about a minute or two before the end of the test. Look over your answer choices. Pick an answer you feel you've answered the least. Guess that letter into all the blanks. So just straight line all the way down. The ACT essay is optional. And the reason why I put that in quotes is because a lot of colleges require the essay. And if you don't take that essay on that administration, they're not going to look at that score. So, for example, I had a student last year who decided at the last minute, without consulting me, just not to take the essay. He said, I had a good one last time, I'm not going to do it again. He got a 35. That's like amazing. That's really high into the 99th percentile. None of his colleges were going to accept that because he didn't take the essay. So it's like almost a perfect score. I wanted to cry. I couldn't even email him for like 2 days because I had such bad news when he said they didn't take the essay off of that. So please always take the essay unless you are 100% certain every single college you are applying to, it is optional. Generally speaking, cover your bets, be competitive with all the other students who are applying to UVM, and go ahead and take the essay. And we'll talk about it. It's really not a big barrier. To give you kind of a foreshadowing, you can completely make up the facts for it. So there's a lot of things you can do on the essay when you know what they're looking for to make it a lot easier and to be much more successful with it. But we'll talk about that in a moment. I just want to recap. So we're talking about the test structure. We're talking about what the scores are. We're going to talk about how the colleges use them a little bit more, because the next question is, what about retakes? What if I take the test more than once? What are the colleges going to do with those scores? So here's basically where the colleges are, is that they don't care how many times you take this test. Just as a piece of trivia, you can take this test 14 times. Never had a student do it, but hey, now you know. So what the colleges are going to do, they're going to do one of two things. They're either going to take your best single time out score, or they will super score all of your tests together. So if you do really well on reading on the first test, and then the rest of your tests you take you don't do so well, but you do well on the math on the second one, do well on the English on the third one, colleges that super score are going to take those scores and mix and match them to give you like a best all-time score. Does that make sense? Questions about super scoring or best time out? So there's never any downside to retaking the test. The colleges don't care. but there's two methods for how they are going to select your best score, either the best score you get on a single administration or a mixing and matching of the scores you took across different tests.